Hey, Farhan, thank you so much for
Hey,
giving
Rahik
the
bhai.
time.
Thanks
Hey,
for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. So, wanted to discuss a little about security operations with you. So, you recently joined SELISE, and with the mode how we work in a hybrid situation. A lot of us are not familiar with you. So, how about you tell us about it
Sure.
yourself?
Yeah, I recently joined SELISE. It's been, 6 months, I think. I manage the security operations, the SecOps of SELISE. My expertise lies with security. Started my career as a network engineer, went on to be a system administrator, looked after network security, and then really got into security. So yeah, I finished my studies at York in Canada, worked there for a couple of years, came back to Bangladesh, worked with Square as a system administrator and network security guy, and then got the opportunity to work with SELISE.
Oh, that's nice. That's very insightful. So, what what do we have to do to ensure security operations in SELISE?
Okay, so we at SELISE have implemented a security operations center.
Mm-hmm.
So what a security operations center is, it's basically the headquarters of all the security operations. This is where we monitor, detect, and analyze events or threats. It's round the clock 24/7 monitoring of the whole infrastructure, both on-premise, cloud, as well as our softwares and everything. Other than that, we implemented a DevSecOps pipeline. Before we had a DevOps pipeline, and now we integrated security onto the pipeline. So we made sure that security is an integral part of our software development lifecycle now. And other than that, we've been enforcing a lot of security tools and measures for on-premise infrastructure.
Great. Do you want some coffee?
Yeah, sure. That'd be great.
So, you were telling me about vulnerability, risk, 0-day, and MFA. Could you elaborate what does this actually translate to for us?
So vulnerability is basically a weakness in software or hardware, which a malicious actor can exploit and gain access to your system.
Yeah.
So softwares aren't unhackable. There's going to be vulnerabilities that come out and then they get patched and everything.
Absolutely.
So vulnerability opens the door for the attacker to use that vulnerability and gain access to your system. Risk is basically the probability that a vulnerability can be exploited. So it's getting an idea of, can this vulnerability be exploited or not? And 0-day is basically a vulnerability that hasn't been addressed or disclosed. There's no patch or an update out for this vulnerability yet. So it's something that has just come out and that's being exploited, but not many people know about it. So it's basically in the 0-day right now. And MFA is basically multi-factor authentication. So this is where you're actually authenticating a user in different ways. So let's say you're authenticating someone with a password, then you're authenticating someone with a fingerprint, and then you're authenticating someone with a token or anything of that sort. So there's multi-factors of authentication.
So kind of like two-factor authentication.
Exactly. Two-factor is a multi-factor, but just using two factors. There's 3FA, there's multi-factor authentication, basically.
Right. And so what are the new threats to security in the 21st century now that everything is so advanced and we are fully digital?
So there's so many new threats that are coming out every day, so many new different forms of attack. Social engineering attacks are on the rise. Social engineering attacks are basically where a user pretends to be someone to gain your trust, for you to open a file or an executable or an application to basically gain access to your account or to your system, basically. So there's so many, it's the biggest attack right now in the market. So phishing attacks, ransomware attacks is where a malware infects your system and denies access to your system and asks you for a ransom for you to gain back access to the system. Then there's IoT attacks. IoT attacks are basically, there's so many IoT devices out in the market.
Things.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's say your TV, right? Someone has access to your TV. Someone has access to your Alexa. Someone has access to your CCTV at home, right? So there's a lot of IoT attacks that happen right now. These are about it at the moment.
So can you just tell us a bit about like some of the new hacks or some of the new hack news that there
Sure.
are on the
So recently there was a big hack at Uber. I don't know if you've heard about it or not.
No, I'm not aware.
So there's an 18-year-old kid who gained access to the whole infrastructure. How it happened is very simple. So the user, basically a user got compromised using social engineering attack. So say you have a multi-factor authentication assigned with your username and everything. All of a sudden, you're getting spammed on your phone with a code every minute, right? So what the kid did was he used a man-in-the-middle attack with an Uber server where he was spamming the user's phone with MFA codes every minute. And then he messaged the user saying that, listen, from the IT department, there's been a small issue. In order to stop this, I need the code so I can stop. So as the user was getting spammed, the user is like, sure, why don't I just give him the thing so that this thing stops, right? Right away, he got the 2FA access. Then he got the VPN access for the user onto the network. That's how he got into the network. And as soon as he got into the network, he was looking for shares or drive shares where he could find any valuable information. Then he found a share which had a PowerShell script with credentials hard-coded into their privileged access management system, which pretty much gives you access to the whole infrastructure. Use that, gained access to the privileged access management, and pretty much gained access to the AWS infrastructure, the G Suite infrastructure, the domain admin.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very easy. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And an 18-year-old.
Yeah, an 18-year-old kid. That's
So like, what tools do we use to monitor our security?
So we have implemented a bunch of different tools. We have implemented a security operations center, as I mentioned before. In that security operations center, we have an SIEM, which is a security information and event management tool. What it does is it aggregates all the logs and all the information from systems and endpoints and puts them on a central database where we can visualize and see any behavioral changes, any integrity changes, and we monitor any sort of like malicious events over there. We have an EDR, which is an endpoint detection response. What that does is it monitors any events that go on in public facing applications, and we can respond to them right away using EDR technology. We also have IDS and IPS, which was intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems. We have next generation firewalls protecting our perimeter, and we have threat intelligence database. We have vulnerability scanners to check for any vulnerabilities in any of our systems. We have basically 4 tiers of SOC analysts. We have tier 1, we have tier 2, we have threat hunters, and we have people who lead the SOC team. And other than that, for our source code, we have a DevSecOps pipeline right now, which has SCA integrated. SCA is basically software composition analysis. What it does is it checks your software for open source packages and dependencies for any vulnerabilities. We also have an SAST, which is a static application security testing, which checks your code for any sort of vulnerabilities, any sort of information leakage, anything. We also have a DAST, which is dynamic application security testing, which is more of a black box testing of your application after it's been deployed. We also have container security, which checks our containers for any sort of vulnerable packages or stuff. And other than that, we have on the web layer, we have web application firewall, which protects our applications from layer 7 attacks. We have we do penetration testing, both white box and black box, to our applications before we hand them over to our clients. We pretty much have the whole infrastructure basically under the security right now.
That's a lot of tools actually. So you could say we take it pretty seriously.
And it just keeps on increasing because there's more attacks that come out, more ways to secure your infrastructure.
So that's a lot of tools that you mentioned. But for SELISE, what would you say is the most important security?
So for us, we are a software company. We're selling software as a service. Our securing our software and our clients' data is our number one priority.
Absolutely.
So we have to make sure that our whole infrastructure is secure. So when we are building the software, there's no kind of vulnerabilities or no kind of attacks that could compromise our code. And then we have to ensure that the overall product, when we're building it, is using different security mechanism like the DevSecOps pipeline to ensure that the overall software is free from most kind of vulnerabilities and exploits, basically.
So, we're talking a lot about security, and, a part of being secured is also making sure that your employees are, well secured and understands the importance of it. So for SELISE, I would say, what do you think you would want all employees to do to take, the ideal security measures?
Oh, absolutely. So I can't enforce... the biggest thing I would tell is do not use the same password for all your accounts, because once one of your passwords gets compromised in a data breach, that password's out on the internet and anyone can use that password and gain access to all your other accounts if you use that same password for every account. So do not use the same password for every account. Use multi-factor authentication. So even if your account gets compromised, the user, the malicious actor has to compromise your phone or your token. So there's more layers of compromise that he has to do before he can take over your account. Other than that, always use a VPN when you're using a public Wi-Fi. Secure your device. Your device has access to all your information, the company's information. So your device needs to be secure, password protected. What else?
And you're talking about not just laptops, phones as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mobile phones are, you need to secure them as much as you need to secure your laptops.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Farhan Bhai. That was actually very insightful.
No worries.
Thank you for taking
Thank you for having me, Rahik Bhai.
You're welcome.
Take care.
We'll talk again soon.
Yeah, take care.
Take care.